Hello, my name is Joseph Barber, and today I'm reviewing Mini Motorways. It is a city builder / puzzle game released on Apple Arcade in September of 2019 and on Steam in July of 2021 and was developed by Dinosaur Polo Club. The basic gameplay consists of constructing roads, roundabouts, and bridges to connect up colored houses with their identical destinations. There are a number of different maps based off the terrain of various cities around the globe, though each map starts very simply with a limited area and a single location. Slowly the play zone expands, incorporating obstacles like rivers, mountains, or multicolored destinations. After each in-game week, a player is granted additional roads and upgrades to help assist with the traffic flow. A game ends when a destination builds up a backlog of requests that aren't answered. Each game is independent with no persistent upgrades or unlocks, just individual scores. The game is very satisfying, though it does seem to be lacking a bit in strategy. I understand there are ways to go infinite and create a self-sustaining city, but in my experience the game would reach a certain point before everything would go to hell, and then it would end. This was inevitable, and it depended hugely on where the miscellaneous buildings would spawn, which a player has very little control over. The best strategy, aside from avoiding traffic snarls and isolating colors, is building on empty land far away from existing structures. This is the only way a player can influence where they spawn, but it feels very counterintuitive and micro-intensive, and a game that should be more relaxing and strategic on a macro level. This, however, is not a major issue, though it does dampen the experience. There is a huge amount of satisfaction from creating a city and seeing the cars zoom around it. The visual design helps, with pleasing colors in both the night and day version. Each city has its own color scheme as well, which is a very nice touch. The visual effects and transitions are subtle, but help the feel too. It's a game that doesn't require the most thought, and can easily be played on a second monitor, but that's intentional in many ways, due to the pause and play nature of it, and it's a positive rather than a negative. In many ways, Mini Motorways is a natural extension from DPC's previous game, Mini Metros, but that's not how it started. After working on Metros for over 5 years, they were looking to do something different. In an interview, Robert Curry said, "We had a company-wide game jam for about 3 months long, just trying to find the next thing. Even after deciding on a concept based off roadmaps, there was still struggles in making that concept fun. Mini Motorways, I don't know, it was like 6 months of just dragging it, kicking and screaming into the world. And I think over that time, we really learned what made the first game so special as well." There were a number of early concepts for the art style of the game, some opting for an isometric perspective, others mixing side views of city and landmarks with top-down cars. In addition to trying out different looks, many different color schemes and palettes were considered. In the final game, many of these ended up being used due to both the day and night schemes of the various levels and regional variations. The final design came from the art team looking at road signs, trying to find iconography from the real world as far as roads go. There was some success, and you can see that as far as icons go. It leaned more towards things like Apple and Google Maps. The core loop of the game is finding the most efficient way to connect a colored house to that colored destination. They're really just squares or circles, so it's hard to say exactly what they are meant to be, but shopping malls or multiplexes seem likely. In each city, the player starts with one of a few different upgrades: roundabouts, bridges, traffic lights, highways, or tunnels. Each week, around 3 different locations spawn, as well as a few corresponding houses. The location of each is not necessarily related. Much of the challenge comes from crossing a large map crisscrossed with roads to reach the destination. The demand for each location increases over time, as does the space they can spawn in. Due to the increase in cars, congestion naturally occurs, and eventually it becomes overwhelming. And when the first destination overloads, the game is over and the score is tallied up, which is simply the number of cars that completed their route. The various maps have variable spawn rates, in addition to the differing geographies. An average round will be around 1,000 cars, with 2,000 being an achievement in each location. There are 12 cities at the moment, with more to come, as the company's last game was supported for 7 years. In addition to the base challenges, there is also weekly and daily ones with unique modifiers. This is a feature I've been seeing more and more in games like this, and is a good way to keep up player engagement, despite not having a battle pass or experience or unlocks or anything of that kind. It's refreshing in a way, and nice to have a game structured on a strong foundation without the need for these dopamine drives. The visual design of the game was aimed to resemble map softwares, but with the edges smooth. Because of the simplistic design, there's no visual clutter. Everything shown is important and helps inform the player about what they need to do. Though some of their earlier styles were more interesting, they sacrificed a fair amount of readability for aesthetics, which is something the developer is clearly not interested in. The gameplay took first priority in all their decisions, and the sound is a great example of that. The music is unobtrusive to the point of being invisible, offering slight background noise to the booping and bopping of areas spawning, or being in need of attention. The overall audio feel reminds me of birds chirping, and is fairly melodic. Mini Motorways has received a number of bug fixes and minor tweaks since its release, and a new city, the developer's hometown of Wellington, has just been added in the last week. They've planned to offer continuous support for a number of years, similar to Mini Metro, and they aim to incorporate all the modes from that game into this one in one way or another. City building games have had a bit of a resurgence since City Skylines came out, though many of them offer more sim experience and tend towards early access, with examples including Barony or RimWorld. Motorways is less of that, and more of a puzzle game with a city veneer. There have been more and more puzzle games popping up, especially on mobile, which is where Motorways had its birth. Overall, Mini Motorways is a very satisfying game with a good balance of interaction and watching what has been wrought. Sometimes losses can feel random, but in general a player can learn and improve from them, developing skills that become apparent as average scores raise. I give it 4 stars out of 5. I'd like if you could check out my Patreon below and like and subscribe. Wherever you are, I hope you have a great day.